This is a video on how to handle larger groups in a sales context. So if you have a lunch meeting or you have a meeting where you're addressing perhaps a business team or a practice team and you want to have a greater sense of control and credibility in the meeting, here's a couple of things that are useful. First things first is ask everyone in the group to introduce themselves by name and what their role is in the business. And lead that by starting yourself. So just say, in terms of structure today, I thought we'd start with a quick round of introductions. So you can introduce yourself and then work the room to get everybody to introduce themselves. Once everybody's introduced themselves, then say, great, thank you for inviting me here today. There's a few things that might be useful before we start. First thing is, just like to check that everybody has got the opportunity to silence phones and give us the full attention so that you can invest in yourselves during this next hour that we're together. I then pick up my own phone, put it on silent, and that's an indication for everybody else to do the same. And normally people will follow suit, so they'll pick up their phones, and normally it's phones that are the problem, and they'll put them on silent. Then I might say, okay, so what we're going to do over the next hour together is, obviously you've invited me here to talk about the work we do in our business, but before we do that, I'll just ask a few questions, just so that I understand where you are, what you're doing today, and just to make sure that what I'm going to talk through is most relevant to you. So I'll ask a few questions. Once I've asked a few questions, then I'll talk about the product and I'll talk about what we're going to cover today. If questions come up during that time, what I'll probably do is just ask you to hold on to the question until the end, and then we'll take questions and answer them at the end. Would that be okay? And by this point, everybody says, yeah, that's okay. So we've done a few things here. We have got everybody's attention. We've told them what we're going to do. We've got them to silence any notifications. We have then told them the structure. We can then go in to ask them questions so that we start to surface some of those needs. Once we understand the needs, then we can have a much more compelling and relevant conversation with them about what it is we can offer. And from there, we can then start to close the sale, gain commitment, move on to next steps. And if anybody in the room is a disruptor or is going to ask questions, up front, we've already said we're going to take questions at the end. So if you're then interrupted in the middle of the conversation or the middle of the presentation, you can say, thanks for the question. I appreciate that. If you're okay, I'm probably going to cover that either through the demonstration. If I don't, we'll make sure we pick that up and answer it at the end. Is that okay? Yes. And now you've got control of the session. You've got control of the time scale, and you just make sure that you get the questions you need answered. You're able to explain the product the way you want to explain it, and you can handle anybody that's going to just interrupt or potentially interfere. And it's a really useful way to handle it. And then go through the product questions, the customer questions, product demonstration. Then we go to close the sale, answer any questions. Then we say next steps, and let's make sure that we get real commitment on those next steps with the customer. These sound like simple principles, but if you haven't tried them, what you will find is that you're being continually interrupted or you don't have a sense of control over your customer meetings when you get into groups. By doing this, we just get control of the group. We're able to take a leading position in that conversation. You have much more confidence that actually you're going to get to the outcome that you want. I hope this is useful. I look forward to hearing how you put this into practice.